The headline claims this is about liberation, but that framing misses the entire strategic point. The United States isn't arming Iranian dissidents out of altruism or a desire to install democracy. It is an act of surgical economic statecraft designed to bleed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps dry without triggering a total war. While news cycles scream civil war, the reality is far more calculated. By fueling internal fractures, Washington exploits a specific window where Tehran cannot afford to collapse its own military infrastructure while simultaneously trying to hold the Strait of Hormuz open for global oil markets. The pause on airstrikes isn't hesitation. It is an opportunity cost calculation, letting the rebellion degrade Iran from within so that when the U.S. does strike again, the target is already hollowed out by its own people. To understand why this strategy works, we must look at the brutal math of incentives facing Tehran right now. The strategic landscape has shifted dramatically from a binary state versus state conflict to a multi-layered power vacuum where internal fractures are being weaponized externally. According to analysis of the current operational environment, U.S. and Israeli kinetic operations have already achieved disproportionate tactical success. In just 1 week of intensified bombing, approximately 330 out of an estimated 470 Iranian missile launchers were neutralized by IDF precision strikes. Furthermore, over 90% of Iran's naval assets are now claimed sunk as of late March 2026. This degradation has not forced surrender, but triggered a forward defense strategy that backfired catastrophically for the regime. Tehran attempted to escalate by mining the Strait of Hormuz and expanding conflict horizontally across 14 nations, including direct engagements in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and various Gulf states. Within the first 24 hours alone, 9 countries were hit by Iranian retaliation. The logic was that if they could threaten global trade enough, external powers would back down. Instead, this external escalation coincided with a severe internal fracture within the IRGC hierarchy itself. Following high-value strikes that eliminated key leadership figures and dozens of commanders, the command structure has fractured into competing factions vying for control. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. This is where Washington's pivot becomes clear. From liberation to exploitation. Arming anti-IRGC dissidents is not an attempt to install a new government or fix Iran. It is a mechanism designed to force Tehran's remaining military capacity to split its focus between external retaliation and internal suppression. This creates a strategic trap that the Iranian leadership cannot escape. The regime must choose between losing control of its own territory or maintaining enough naval and missile capability to deter further U.S. strikes. By allowing this friction to fester, Washington ensures that even if the current regime survives, its military machine is so degraded by internal bleeding and external attrition that it can no longer threaten regional allies or American interests for decades to come. Consider the stakes of global oil markets to see why a pause on airstrikes was necessary. 1/5 of all global oil trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran were able to unify its command structure, close the strait permanently, and direct every remaining asset at that choke point, prices would spike globally, triggering an economic shockwave far more damaging than any military campaign could achieve in isolation. By arming groups fighting their own government, Washington ensures that no unified Iranian response can materialize quickly enough to shut down trade before global markets react. The rebellion effectively acts as a biological agent, degrading the enemy's ability to project power from within. This explains why airstrikes are paused at critical moments during these operations. It is not indecision or fear of escalation. It is a calculated delay to let internal IRGC infighting maximize damage before resuming kinetic strikes on remaining assets. When leaders announce such pauses, they often frame them as humanitarian efforts or de-escalation tactics. In reality, the question is who designed this incentive structure and why allies tolerate the pain. The answer lies in the fact that a fractured enemy is cheaper to defeat than a unified one. Every hour spent by IRGC commanders suppressing internal uprisings is an hour they cannot spend defending missile silos or coordinating naval movements against American carriers. The endgame here is not regime collapse, which has not happened and may never happen under this strategy. It is strategic irrelevance. The goal is a weakened Iran that can no longer function as the primary disruptive power in the Middle East. By allowing internal friction to do the heavy lifting of degrading capacity before any final blow is delivered, Washington achieves two distinct objectives without requiring a full-scale invasion or risking American casualties on the ground. First, it prevents a unified Iranian response that could close the Strait of Hormuz permanently, protecting global oil markets from shock. Second, it ensures that even if the regime survives the current crisis, its military machine is so degraded by internal bleeding and external attrition that it can no longer threaten regional allies or U.S. interests in any meaningful way for decades to come. This reframes why you are seeing anti-IRGC groups getting armed in the news cycle today. It often confuses viewers expecting a standard regime change narrative where American boots replace local soldiers. The reality is far colder and more effective. This is about breaking an enemy's ability to project power globally, not fixing their domestic politics. By fueling internal fractures with just enough arms to keep them fighting but not enough to win the civil war outright, Washington ensures that Tehran remains distracted and depleted. When kinetic strikes resume later in the campaign, they will face a target already hollowed out by its own people's conflict, minimizing American casualties and avoiding the political quagmire of occupation entirely. The strategic landscape has shifted from a binary state versus state conflict to a multi-layered power vacuum where internal fractures are being weaponized externally. This is realpolitik in action, using an adversary's structural weaknesses against them rather than engaging in costly direct confrontation. The pause on airstrikes was not hesitation. It was the moment when Washington decided that letting the rebellion degrade Iran from within was more efficient than dropping every bomb available right now. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.